Hi, thanks for joining Law for Doctors today. My name is Leland Faux. I'm an attorney with Law for Doctors. Today we're going to be talking about some things that, when you're a professional like an attorney, a doctor, or a banker, there's some things that your clients do. You just want to take them and kind of wring their neck and say, stop doing this. So today that's what we're going to be talking about in the banking world. I have Morgan Stump with us today. He's from Wells Fargo. He's a VP and territory manager. Territories are
Oregon, Nevada, Wyoming, and Utah.
Right, and then your practice is specifically with the medical professions.
That's correct. I work for a division of Wells Fargo Bank called Wells Fargo Practice Finance, and all we've been doing is lending for doctors for the last 25 years. And so I work with physicians, dentists, optometrists, and veterinarians. And we work with a single owner operator, and typically there's 1-2 practice locations, so really the owner-operator type where they've got their hands in the business still. So I'm still working with the owners that actually control the financing, and like you said, sometimes they do things that makes you want to kind of scream, but they need guidance just like everybody else, and that's what I'm here for.
Right, and it's good to know that there still are those the small doctors doing kind of their own thing. Are you seeing it grow or maintain or shrink?
Well, with the uncertainty in healthcare on the physician side, we are seeing a lot of doctors head out to back into the hospital setting, if you will. But we do see doctors leaving the hospital to start up their own practice, and that's what we do, is we help them finance that. We also help them finance the purchase of an existing practice. And so on the physician side of things, we see more going into the hospital or the big group setting. But we are seeing many veterinarians, many dentists, many optometrists that are still that single owner operator, and that's really making up a lot of our business right now, and the growth pattern there is very strong.
Yeah, that's cool. I consider myself a small business guy. I like the smaller guys, so I hope that they stick around and can succeed. So
me too.
Let's talk about some of the things they can do to do that.
All right.
All right. So I see you have 3 kind of main points that you wanted to share.
Yeah.
Why don't we just start with the first one?
Well, the first one, I think this is a really big deal right now, because as you know, rates are historically low. Even property values are still extremely low, especially in this market. And so I think right now, if a doctor does not own the space that they're practicing in, then they should be doing everything that possible to get into that position. Leasing space is great, but you've got a landlord. You don't get to make all your own decisions. You got to run everything by them. But most importantly, there's a lot of tax benefits that go along with having your own building, having your own space, having that set up in an LLC, and then having your S Corp or your LLC operating company, the practice, the operating entity, actually paying the LLC rent. I mean, I want everybody to talk to their CPAs, because I'm not a CPA, but there are tremendous tax benefits that go along with that. Not to mention, it's extremely affordable right now. I know that we have an exclusive product. It's an SBA 7A product that is a 25-year, fully fixed, fully amortized product. So you've got basically a 25-year term. Rates right now are at about 5.35%, and it requires only 10% down. So I kind of scratched out some numbers, and I know that 10%, even though it doesn't sound like a lot, sometimes that 10% is just enough to make a doctor not want to move forward with purchasing a building, because everybody tells them cash is king, hang on to your cash. Well, we actually have a way to go ahead and provide them with 100% commercial real estate financing. So I would be able to go in and provide a loan based on their practice assets to give them the cash out to pay for that 10% down. So now you've got 100% financing for that building. You don't have to come out of pocket a single dime. And I was crunching some numbers before the show for a client, and a $750,000 building, which is probably plenty around here for a single practitioner, maybe even enough to have 2 different office suites. 25-year fixed at 5.35% right now gives you a monthly payment of $4,084. Then if we wanted to finance the 10% down, which is $75,000, I can go ahead and do that. Again, a fixed rate term, that payment's less than $800. So you've got a doctor that can get into a building with no money down, a $750,000 building for a total of about $4,900 a month. I think that you'll find that the lease payment for a building of that size is going to be considerably higher than that. So it's important that we talk about what's available, arming yourself with the knowledge necessary to be successful. And I think that this is a great program that can help doctors get into that position. And that's really how you take your practice to the next level, is by owning your space. A thing that goes along with that is, your transition plan. When you want to retire, you can sell your practice. You can hold on to the building and just lease it back to whoever you sell your practice to. That's an annuity that's going to be moving forward and producing income for you even in retirement. So I think that's a big mistake a lot of successful doctors make, is not owning their own space.
Right. So yeah, I can definitely see you're making your own. It's just like owning your own home. If you can pay equity to yourself instead of to a landlord, I mean, that's always going to be better off in the long run. Especially if they can still hold on to their cash now. I mean, I can see how that is a good thing for them. So.
Absolutely. And it's to be able to right now in this market, in this rate environment, to be able to lock yourself into a 25-year fixed loan, literally at 5.35%, fixed for the 25 years, nobody's going to be able to touch that. In 10 years, you're going to look like a genius, when rates are back up to 7, 8, 9%. So I encourage everybody to look into that.
Right. And I know my law firm, we actually own our own building too. I know one thing you think about is, once everything is paid off, and you are just collecting basically the lease money for yourself, it's like, some money for no work.
That's where you want to. That's where you want to get to.
If you're going to want to retire, that's a great idea. So.
Absolutely. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'm seeing this a lot right now. You got to be careful how you have your debt structured. We all know that doctors are very busy people. We all know that they've got pharmaceutical reps, equipment vendors in their office all the time, peddling their goods, selling them equipment. And because doctors are so busy, and because vendors often offer their own financing, we see some interesting loans out there where, I'll take a dentist for example, a crown making machine. If anybody's ever had to get a crown, they know that they go in to the dentist, they get the root canal, they get fitted with the temporary, they have to leave, they have to come back for a second appointment to get that final crown, that's just got back from the lab. So it takes 2 visits. It's a really painful experience, both physically and mentally.
I've never done that, thank goodness.
I've had one. It was brutal. But, the CEREC machine is a crown making machine that for about $150,000, it allows a doctor, a dentist, to mill that crown right there in the office. So you walk in and you walk out hours later with that permanent crown. You don't have to go back. You don't have to wait for them to send it off to a lab. And if there's any issues with it, they can go ahead and fix it right there on the spot. Well, that's a $150,000 piece of equipment. And the vendor will offer financing on that with a simple 1-page application and a social security number. Well, meanwhile, the term is 5 or 7 years at 7 or 8%. And doctors think, oh, I'm making all kinds of money. Let's go ahead and just do that. I'll get it paid off. No big deal. I'll pay it off early. Well, our loan portfolio tells us that 90% of doctors take their loans all the way to term. No matter what they have in mind, no matter what their ambitions are to pay that loan off early, they're going to carry it full term. So oftentimes we come across a doctor that's got an MRI machine or an EMR machine out there, and they know they're making good money, but for some reason cash flow feels really tight. And that's pretty simple. That's because they've got 3 or 4 different loans spread out all over short terms, all over higher interest rates. So what I'm doing a lot of right now is a simple business loan refinance. So I can come in and I can wrap up all of those debts and put it onto one fixed low interest rate. So instead of being on a 5 or 7 year term at 7 or 8%, I can go ahead and take all that, wrap it up into a loan based on 10 years, fixed at 5% with no fees. So then all of a sudden, instead of having $6,000 a month going out to various lenders, now you've got our loan payment that might be $2,000, $3,000 less per month than what they currently have. So in those scenarios, think about the kind of cash flow that can be opened up for your practice for you to do other things such as grow technology, add more staff, whatever it might be to help you get you to the next level. So I encourage people to really take a look at the debts that they do have and consult their local finance expert to see if they could restructure it to open up cash flow.
So what would you recommend? Like, I know for when I'm dealing with people and they have contracts, I will say, you should have like maybe some sort of a policy where if a contract is so much in dollars or so long in duration, that's the type of contract you'd want to have reviewed by an attorney or
absolutely,
I'd say an attorney, before you go forward with it. Is there something like that you'd say an example where you're financing something, should you have all contracts reviewed by a banker or?
Yeah, I mean, I open any conversation. You know, even if there's not quote unquote meat on the bones right there, and they don't know or they don't understand where they need to be or where they're going. I'll spend 20, 30 minutes with the doctor, you know, as basically a free consultation to walk through exactly where they're at in their career. Maybe they've got these loans, but maybe they're going to be paid off in a year or two. And stretching them back out over 10 years doesn't make any sense, because then they're just going to be paying that front end interest again. And maybe cash flow is a little bit tight, but they can make it happen. And if they can be debt free in a year or two, it doesn't make sense to stretch that debt back out. So, you know, we're looking to do whatever is best to grow that doctor's practice and their career. And so oftentimes, you know, when I work with CPAs, typically it's CPAs that are going through the tax returns, the mid-year reviews, and they see that interest expense on the tax returns. It just takes a simple question, you know, doctor, you know, how's cash flow feel? What are your interest rates on these loans? And that's basically how that conversation goes. I'm able to crunch some numbers on the spot. And is this a payment that's palpable to you? Is it something that you want to keep in the status that it's in so that you can pay it off quicker? Do we want to not put it on a 10-year term? Do we want to put it on a 5-year term? There's many options. So I'm all about communication. Doctors so often get, you know, stuck in their day-to-day where they don't really have time to look at this kind of stuff. So
yes.
The key to this message is just have these conversations, because it can make a huge difference in your business.
Right. Yeah, so if anyone listening, you haven't looked at your debt, you should do that, you know, have a banker look at it.
Absolutely.
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
All right, what's our third thing here?
The next one, and this is kind of a little bit varying from the first two, but I've been seeing it a lot lately. And, you know, there's a baby boomer generation that they probably, you know, these doctors probably would have retired in 2007, 8, or 9. But unfortunately, with the economic downturn, we saw a lot of doctors really get hit hard in the market, the 401ks, the IRAs, where they've had to hold on and they've been practicing to try to turn things around. And now they're at that point where things have turned around, and they want to consider selling their practice. And a lot of them, unfortunately, a lot of doctors count on the sale of their practice kind of being their nest egg to boost them into retirement. And so what I see and what this mistake is allowing your practice to decline in revenues before you sell the practice. Whether it's going from 5 days a week to 4 days a week to 3 days a week, whatever it might be, it is absolutely crucial that you keep that top line revenue figure up. So if you have to bring in an outside doctor, an associate, whatever you might call them, a contracted employee, to keep the revenues up while you're, you know, golfing an extra day a week or you're taking more family vacations, then absolutely do that. Because when a bank goes to collect the full package to finance the borrower that's buying that practice, the person that's buying that practice is going to be the borrower. But what we're going to do is we're going to underwrite their situation based as though they are already in that practice practicing. So we'll be collecting, like right now, if somebody comes to me and says, Morgan, I want to sell my practice, I would collect a 2012, 2013 business tax returns from them, as well as a 2014 year-to-date profit and loss statement. And if 2012 they were doing, you know, 1.2 million, 2013 they dropped to 1 million, now they're on pace through 6 months of 2014 to hit $800,000 or $900,000, and we're seeing a 10% decline year over year. That's going to greatly impact how much they're going to be able to sell that practice for. So
Right.
I like to talk to a seller at least, you know, 2 years before they sell, consult them on how to beef up that balance sheet to go ahead and, you know, capture all that goodwill and that hard work that they've been working on for 20, 30 years oftentimes. Don't let the twilight of your career really impact what you're able to sell that practice for.
Right, and for some weird reason, it reminds me of my high school wrestling coach.
Okay.
So we would run twice a week, and it'd be a 3-mile run. And his big thing was like, when you run, the last little leg of it, which was like, I don't remember how long, but he had a requirement that you sprint the last
Go hard.
The last part.
Yes.
He said because that's where you're going to really like exercise your cardiovascular system and like get like the boost that you're going to need in your wrestling matches.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like I just reminded that when you said run to the finish line when you're ready to sell. You got to plan.
That's a great analogy, you know. But hopefully the doctors don't have to wear those rubber sweatsuits. You know, that wouldn't be a good thing. But I think that's a great analogy. Finish hard. You worked 20, 30 years to build this practice up. Finish hard. Sell it as high as you can, and then ride off into the sunset.
Yeah. So just the last little thing for the people listening, I have on my blog right now, it's one of our featured articles. It's the 5 people every business owner should know and every physician should know. One of those, the first one is an attorney.
As it should be.
Yeah, and then you also need to know a banker, and I think we've gone over some of the reasons why a banker is going to help you. Obviously, a CPA, you need to have a good relationship with an insurer, an insurance agent. And then finally, especially if you're just starting out, you need to have kind of like a business mentor or a coach, someone that you can rely on, just sound advice that's been there before. So if you're looking for a banker, if you haven't had someone come look at your financial information, Morgan's a good guy at Wells Fargo. Everyone at Wells Fargo that I've met have just been kind of salt of the earth type people. So Morgan, if you'd mind giving your information, I can get a hold of you.
Thank you for the kind words, and yeah, I'm going to give out my cell phone. I travel a little bit, but I'm very responsive, so I'll give you out my cell phone and my email contact information. And it's important that you guys understand that, I am a specialist. All I do is work with doctors. All I do is, for the last number of years, is help doctors grow their cash flow and help them grow their practice. So if you'd like to reach out to me, I'd love to hear from anybody. My cell phone number is area code 714-308-4959, 714-308-4959. Then you can shoot me an email as well, j.morgan.stump@wellsfargo.com. That's j.morgan.stump@wellsfargo.com. So thank you for that.
Yeah, what's the J stand for?
James.
Nice.
I'm the third. I'm James Morgan Stump the third, and we're not royalty. My dad goes by Jim. My grandpa goes by Jim. So my mom said, as soon as I was born, you're going to go by Morgan.
Oh, funny.
There won't be a fourth. Yeah, that's painful. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope to see you next time.
Thank you.